Hi, this is Sarah and I'm here again in my Real Food Kitchen, and today I would like to show you how to make homemade ricotta. I learned how to make ricotta because if you've ever had the ricotta that comes in the grocery store, to me it's like dry. I hate that sort of chalky, granular kind of texture. And that's not what homemade ricotta is like. Homemade ricotta is heavenly. And before I get started, I just want to expand your mind a little bit about what you can do with ricotta. Aside from pasta dishes, obviously, but before we move on from there, if you make your own homemade lasagna with homemade ricotta, it will blow your mind. It's so good. But beyond that, you can also use it as an hors d'oeuvre. I have friends coming over later and I am going to serve them some of my homemade ricotta with the homemade ciabatta that I made. I'm going to drizzle the ricotta with olive oil and crack some pepper on it and put some finishing salt, and we're just going to eat it with ciabatta. It will be delicious. But also, think about it in sweet things. Homemade ricotta makes fantastic cheesecake, and it's good with simply some fresh fruit on top of it as a dessert, as kind of a lighter dessert. Russians eat a ricotta kind of cheese with jam on top with tea. Delicious. So it has a lot of different potential uses beyond pasta. So let's get started. Oh, I want to show you the recipe. Very simple. And talk to you a little bit about it. So ricotta can be made with mostly milk and some heavy cream, or half and half and some heavy cream. For me, it all depends on what I'm going to use the ricotta for eventually. So today, like I said, I'm going to serve it as an appetizer, but I also want to be able to serve it as a dessert. I want it to be another time. So I want it to be more like cheese. I want it to have a firmer, more cheese-like structure. So I'm going to use half and half. It's going to be firmer and it's going to be richer. If I were going to use it in a pasta dish, I would use milk. When I use milk, it's going to have a looser, softer structure, which is nice for spreading over, sauce and sheets of pasta to make lasagna. Okay? But today I will be using half and half. The first thing you should do is you need some kind of largish bowl, and it works better if it's sort of a cylindrical shape, because we're going to eventually put the cooked milk or cream through this strainer, and the whey is going to fall down through the strainer and the cheesecloth, and this is going to collect it. If it's in a wider bowl, this will sit in the whey and it won't strain the way we need it to, so it should have somewhat of a cylindrical shape. So we're just going to line this with cheesecloth. And the weight of the cream when we put it in there is going to pull this down a little bit. So don't be skimpy with the cheesecloth. I'm going to do it one more time over this way because I don't like the fact that those sections don't have cheesecloth on them, because that's a way for the cheese or the cream to escape the cheesecloth and then it won't strain again. So there, we have our well-lined strainer and that's ready to go. So all we do at this point is put our cream This, by the way, is organic cream. I like to use organics whenever possible, but when it comes to dairy, I always use organic, because when I look at the label, it's cream. The only ingredient on the side of the container should be cream. Let's get all of that in there. Now remember I said you could use either half and half or milk in the recipe depending on what you want the ricotta to look like when it's done. But in terms of the cream that we put in, you have to have the heavy cream. The ricotta needs that fat to do its thing. If you try to use only milk, it won't firm up at all. It'll mostly go right through that cheesecloth. All right, so we're going to take the cream, we're going to add our salt, and we're going to put it on the heat at moderate temperature until it sort of simmers, sort of a soft rolling boil for 2 minutes, and then we're going to add the acid. This happens to be lemon juice, which I prefer because it gives it a good flavor, but if you are ever out of lemons, I've used vinegar, like white wine vinegar, and I could barely taste the difference, so that will work as well. All right, so I'm going to put it on the stove and I'll show you what it should look like when we add the salt. All right, so here's the cream that we have on the stove, and if you can see it's bubbling. It's not going crazy bubbling, but it is bubbling nicely. And I also wanted to say that earlier I said I will show you what it looks like when we add the salt, which we have already added. Right now what we are adding is the acid. All right, so we have this nice steady boil. When we add the acid, it's going to curdle, and that's what we want because we need to separate the cream from the whey. So we'll just watch it so that you can see what it should look like. And if it's working, it should happen almost immediately, and I can see that it is. I don't know if you can see it on camera yet, but the milk solids are starting to separate from the whey. We're going to let this go for about 2 minutes. And then we'll put it through the strainer. All right, so I added the acid. It cooked for 2 minutes. I let it rest for about 3 minutes. And I want to show you, can you see how the curds and whey have separated from each other? That's what we're looking for. Now all we have to do is put it through the strainer. All right, so now all that's left remaining to do is, is to put it through the strainer. I sloshed some. I'm going to have to wait for it to catch up to me a little bit. All right, so you might have to stop a couple of times and let the process catch up to you for the whey to drip down into the, in this case, measuring cup. It will all fit in here. I've done it before. But right now it still has a lot of the whey in it. And that is the last little bit. Now all that's left to do is let this stand for an hour, and it will be ready to eat or to cook with. So we'll be back in an hour and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so we have let the ricotta rest for an hour and drain, and the whey has fallen into the bottom of this large measuring cup, and in fact I've poured some of it off already. And so now we are ready to take our ricotta out. And I just kind of invert it onto a plate. And pull the cheesecloth off. Isn't that beautiful? It smells fantastic. And then, just as a little tip, I have a friend who's a vegetarian, and he likes to use this whey, which makes me very happy because look how much there is. He puts it in his protein drinks, and so I save it for him. And I actually probably have twice this amount, and I've already drained. And so I give this to him, and he makes his protein drinks out of it instead of putting water in it. And just as a final word, I just want to reiterate how many different things you can do with this. It can be savory, it can be dessert. It will keep in the refrigerator at least a week. I mean, I honestly think it's best the very day that you make it, but it will probably last for 10 days. I'm saying probably because it's never lasted that long in my house. But yeah, so you can see how simple it is, and I hope you try it on your own, and thank you for watching. And if you liked this video, please like me right down below the screen. You can give me a thumbs up, and please leave me a comment or a question. Right, see you next time. Bye.